Learn Japanese history.
We are your navigators, Taro and Hanako.
Welcome. Today we're doing a deep dive into a really pivotal time in Japan right after World War I.
Absolutely. We're looking at the political shifts, the social changes.
Yeah.
It's a complex period.
Yet you see the rise of political parties gaining real influence, and also all these different social movements starting to bubble up.
It's foundational, really, for understanding modern Japan. Where should we start? Maybe with the end of the Terauchi cabinet.
Good idea. So the Terauchi cabinet resigns.
Hmm.
This is after the rice riots, correct?
That's right. Those riots were widespread and showed, well, deep public unrest. It forced a rethink.
A rethink even among the elder statesmen, the general.
Exactly. Even someone like Yamagata Aritomo, who wasn't exactly pro-party politics, saw that things had to change.
They realized they needed a cabinet with some party backing for legitimacy for public support.
Precisely. You couldn't just ignore the parties or public opinion anymore.
Which leads us to Harakai. He becomes prime minister in 1918, Taishu 7. Recommended by those same elder statesmen, surprisingly.
Well, he was president of the Rikken Seikai, the biggest party in the House of Representatives. So it made political sense in a way.
And his background was really different, wasn't it?
Very different. He wasn't from Satsuma or Chushu, the domains that had dominated politics for so long.
He was from the former Nanbu domain, up in modern Iwate Prefecture.
That's the one. And crucially, he wasn't nobility.
And the first PM to actually hold a seat in the House of Representatives.
Yes. All of this earned him that nickname.
The commoner prime minister.
Right. And that created huge public expectation. People saw him as, one of them in a sense, a break from the old ways.
It represented a shift maybe towards legitimacy, coming more from popular support, less from just elite status.
I think it's a fair assessment. It signals a move away from the pure Meiji oligarchic style.
And he wasn't just a politician, right? He'd had other roles before.
Oh, yes. Quite experienced. He'd been vice minister of foreign affairs and president of the Osaka Mainichi Shimbun.
A major newspaper. So he knew how things worked, politically and in the media.
Definitely. And when he formed his cabinet, it was a statement. He made it a full-fledged party cabinet. Almost all ministers were from his party, the Rikken Seikai.
Almost all. Who were the exceptions?
Army, Navy, and Foreign Affairs. Those portfolios were still, kept somewhat separate from direct party control.
I see. But still, mostly party members. That really cemented the Seiyukai's power.
It did. And they did push some positive policies, too. Promoting industry, expanding education.
Things that would benefit the country broadly.
Yes. And another big move was changing the election law in 1919.
Suffrage expansion. They lowered the tax requirement?
They did, from 10 yen down to 3 yen of direct national tax payment.
Which sounds maybe small to us now, but back then.
It significantly expanded the electorate. More people could vote than ever before. It was a step.
Just a step, though. Because there was already a push for more, right? For universal suffrage.
Oh, absolutely. That movement was gaining serious steam. You had intellectuals involved, labor unions.
Opposition parties, too, like the Kenseikai and Kokumintu.
Yes, they were definitely advocating for it. But here's the irony.
What's that?
The Hara cabinet, the very government that had expanded suffrage, was actually against universal suffrage.
Really?
They felt it was too soon. Premature. So you see this tension, parties are getting stronger, more people can vote, but the ruling party itself is wary of full democracy.
It shows the limits of the Taishu democracy, perhaps.
It does, and there were other issues too. The Rikken Seikai was so dominant, especially with the single-member constituency system.
The people started to complain about the tyranny of the majority.
Exactly. The feeling was that one party had too much power, that minority voices weren't being heard effectively, even with more voters.
A complex political picture.
Yeah.
And then, tragically, Harakai himself.
Assassinated. In 1921, Taishu's 10. A real shock.
Which just added to the instability, I imagine, especially with the economic situation.
Right, because the wartime boom had ended. 1920 saw a pretty sharp economic downturn.
So political uncertainty, economic hardship. A tough combination.
And then came an unimaginable disaster.
The Great Kanto earthquake, 1923.
Devastating. Just immense destruction. Over 100,000 dead or missing.
Millions displaced. Martial law declared.
It's hard to fathom the scale. And amidst that chaos, terrible things happened.
You mean the rumors about Korean?
Yes. Horrifying rumors about Korean riots spread like wildfire, based on prejudice and fear.
Leading to vigilante groups forming.
And the mass killing of innocent Koreans. It's a truly dark chapter, fueled by panic and racism in a moment of crisis.
A stark reminder of how dangerous that combination can be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have this backdrop: economic problems, the earthquake's aftermath, political shifts.
And out of this, or maybe fueled by it, social movements really start to gain traction.
They certainly do. Things like the Russian Revolution, even the earlier rice riots here, they inspire people, labor movements especially.
Like the Uikai, the Friendly Society.
Well, it started as the Yuikai back in 1912, founded by Suzuki Benji. Initially, it aimed for labor management cooperation.
Way to change.
Dramatically. By 1921, it had transformed into the Nippon Rudu Sujime, the General Federation of Japanese Labor. Much more radical.
Leading strikes, organizing unions, much more confrontational.
Yes. It reflected a growing assertiveness among workers. And you see milestones like the first May Day celebration in Japan in 1920.
A public display of labor strength. What about on the countryside?
Similar trends. Tenant-farmer disputes were increasing. They were organizing too.
Leading to the Nippon Numin Kumiai,
Yeah.
the Japan Farmers Union.
Exactly. Formed in 1922. Led by figures like Sugiyama Motojiro and Kagawa Toyohiko, fighting for farmers' rights.
So organized labor, organized farmers. What else was stirring?
Intellectual circles were active. Progressive groups among teachers, students, like the Shinjinkai at Tokyo Imperial University.
Debating new ideas, pushing for reforms.
And women's movements were gaining momentum too.
We should mention the Seitusha, the Blue Stocking Society, founded earlier, 1911, by Hara Takashi and others.
Right. Their magazine, Seitouche, was really groundbreaking, challenging traditional roles, arguing for women's liberation.
And later, Hiratsuka Raichu joined forces with Ichikawa Fusei.
Yes, in 1920, they formed the Shinfujin Kichikai, the New Women's Association.
And a key goal for them was women's suffrage.
Absolutely. Campaigning hard for the right to vote, really important groundwork being laid there.
Definitely. Another movement that gained national prominence was for Baraku liberation.
A crucial one. People from historically discriminated Baraku communities began organizing nationally to fight that deep-seated prejudice.
This led to the Zenkoku Suheisha, the National Leveler Society, in 1922.
Yes, a unified national organization demanding equality and respect. Their founding declaration, the Suheisha Declaration, was incredibly powerful. It was a major turning point.
So many different groups demanding change. What about socialist and communist ideas?
They were definitely becoming more active. In 1920, various socialist factions actually tried to unite, forming the Nippon Shakai Shugidume, the Socialist League of Japan.
But there were divisions within the left, weren't there?
Oh, yes. A significant split between anarchism associated with figures like Sugi Sakai and communism.
And the Japanese Communist Party itself was formed around this time.
Secretly, yes. In 1922, it operated underground, aiming for revolution. So a real spectrum of left-wing thought emerging.
But it wasn't just left-wing movements, was it? There was also a nationalist current pushing for reform.
Indeed. Thinkers like Kida Ikki and Yukawa Shume were influential here. Their ideas advocating national restructuring from a, nationalist perspective resonated strongly with certain groups.
Including radical nationalists and significantly young military officers.
Exactly. And that influence would become extremely important later on.
So looking back at this whole period, it's just packed with change and tension.
It really is. You have this definite, if incomplete, shift towards party politics. Expanded voting rights, but not universal yet.
Plus, major social upheaval.
Yeah.
The post-war economy, the earthquake.
And feeding into and feeding off, all that were these incredibly diverse movements. Labor, farmers, women, Baraku liberation, socialist nationalists, all demanding change.
It feels like everything was interconnected. Political shifts, enabling social movements, social pressures, pushing politics.
Absolutely. You can't really understand one without the others. This period, messy and turbulent as it was, fundamentally set the stage for Japan's path through the 20th century.
It really makes you think.
And perhaps question for you, listening, to ponder. Considering all these forces, the move towards parties, the economic shocks, the earthquake, these varied social movements, what do you think was the most lasting impact of this era on Japanese society?
Yeah, and what big questions does this period raise for you about how political and social change actually happens? How these different pressures interact? Something to think about.